So one of the satisfying cases that I've handled is assisting a young student with a workplace harassment case. So the mother was unemployed because of very irregular heartbeat. She was very frail. And she came to me about her son's problem. On the first day on the job, the supervisor actually wrote his name on a piece of paper, leave it on the ground, and used her high heel and hit on the paper. So, this is a very typical gesture of 打小人. And the other colleagues were watching. The whole incident was filmed. The boy was very humiliated. So what happened was I took on the case on a pro bono basis. To cut a long story short, we managed to get compensation for him and save him legal costs and all that.
So Pro Bono SG is the charity arm of the Law Society of Singapore, and what we do is to provide services in the areas of legal awareness, advice and advocacy for vulnerable, needy and disadvantaged persons and communities. Social legal problems are actually very complex, very multifaceted, and requires quite a lot of specialization and experience in dealing with persons who are also facing other complex issues such as family breakdown, mental health, and also financial insecurity. And over the years, a lot of the pro bono efforts were sustained and made possible, not just through the generous giving of volunteers, donors, but also through very strong partnerships with our stakeholders.
Well, I think the relationship between government and the community, and in this case, PDO and Pro Bono SG, is really a symbiotic one. PDO and PBSG, we co-deliver criminal defense aid in Singapore. They come in through PDO, and then we do the merits test and the means test to assess whether these applicants are deserving of criminal defense aid. Cases are then allocated between PDO and PBSG to represent them in court. So the objective of the partnership between PDO and PBSG, first of all, it really helps to enhance access to justice because we have two separate pools of lawyers that we can draw from. That broadens the scope of people that we can help. There is also nurturing that interest in criminal defense amongst lawyers. It is important for Pro Bono SG and the Criminal Legal Aid Scheme to preserve that pro bono spirit in the legal fraternity, and that will eventually lead to greater access of justice in Singapore. So PDO and PBSG is really just the next step in what has been a very long partnership between Pro Bono SG and the government.
So if it's a government initiative or a government-supported initiative, it provides two very important assistance to whatever program we want to run. One, credibility, and also the important link up with all the various important partners.
So over at Office of the Public Guardian, what we do is a few things. First of all, we promote the awareness of the lasting power of attorney, and with that, it comes with maintaining the registry of the LPA. So we work with Pro Bono SG in creating awareness in the public and helping people to understand what is the lasting power of attorney as well as the deputyship application process. One key achievement through this collaboration will be the access to justice, because it allows members of public to understand what are the legal rights that they have that they can put in place to safeguard their future as well as to make things easier for their family. So how Pro Bono SG has come in is a lot of all these ground initiatives with support from the professionals. For example, the lawyers, they have been supportive towards the government's initiative to help us to reach out to communities that we may not have been able to reach on our own.
The vision of Charities Unit is to develop a well-governed and thriving charity sector with strong public support. So what we do is that we work with different partners to conceptualize and implement initiatives and events for the charities that promote the good governance practices in the sector. So our partnership with Pro Bono SG has evolved over the years. We organized the In Conversation event with COC and the Charity Council with Pro Bono SG to bring together the charities to share with them what are the latest initiatives that will be relevant to the charities in the coming year. The partnership between the Charities Unit and Pro Bono SG has enabled charities to better understand the legal requirements that are prevalent in their day-to-day administration. This is done through the webinars as well as the one-on-one consultations between Pro Bono SG and the charities. It's important because I think that it allows the government and the charities, even the ground-up movements, to complement one another, helps the charities to address these resource and knowledge gaps. We hope that through all these partnerships, we can empower our charities to attain the higher standards of governance practices as well as transparency practices.
In the lead up to the establishment of the Community Law Centre, we actually received very instrumental help from the Ministry of Social and Family Development. So they helped us to collect very practical insights from the social service sector, from the family service centres, from the social service officers directly, to hear how we can actually practically and holistically help service users and these agencies themselves do their work better. Through the feedback gathered, we found out that many vulnerable clients still face significant challenges trying to access our Pro Bono services. So Pro Bono SG decided to set up its first community law centre at Tian Te Temple in order to bring Pro Bono legal services closer to vulnerable communities. One of the challenges in setting up the community law centre was accurately pinpointing the exact gap that we want to fill. So we're very grateful to the Ministry of Law as well for their partnership in helping us to identify where we could really complement such service gaps in order to holistically help everybody in Singapore. Everyday Singaporeans actually can do so much. They can help us with basic information and referral at the centres. I recall that when we were preparing for the launch of the community law centres, the temple volunteers were so excited. People in the community who have that knowledge and those relationships with other residents, they are so critical as well in the carrying out of our services. The centre saw great success in its first year of operations, and we actually received support from the National Council of Social Service to scale up and to set up our second community law centre at Realm of Tranquility in Woodlands.
We are the conduit. When I say we, means our community law centre is a conduit where all the various governmental programs can be administered with a lot of trust and a lot of warmth actually between the people and the government.
So my hope and dream is for Pro Bono SG to be sustainable, to continue to respond, adapt and innovate. With the government, we are able to extend our reach into vulnerable communities. We are able to better delineate and accurately pinpoint where our resources should be going in order to meet underserved gaps.